Imagine you decide to start a YouTube channel. You open a blank document and write down 5 video ideas, then you delete 3 because they don't feel strong enough. You watch 10 videos about how to start a channel, then another 10 about thumbnails, then one about retention curves, then another comparing microphones, editing software, and whether your first video should be 7 minutes or 9. 3 hours later, you've learned a lot and created nothing. But here's what makes this confusing. It didn't feel like procrastination. It felt like preparation. It felt like exactly what a smart person should do before starting something new. So why does thinking, something that's supposed to help us make better decisions, sometimes keep us from acting at all? And what's actually happening when analysis turns into avoidance? Psychologist Susan Nolen-Hoeksema spent decades studying a pattern she called rumination, the tendency to repetitively analyze problems, feelings, and possibilities without reaching a resolution. Her research found that rumination doesn't typically lead to better solutions. Instead, it tends to amplify anxiety, reduce confidence, and delay action. And the pattern often begins with something understandable: uncertainty. When you're about to do something visible, risky, or new, like publishing your first video, the brain registers that uncertainty as a potential threat. In response, it offers what feels like a productive solution: think more. At first, this seems helpful. Planning gives a sense of control. Research creates a feeling of progress. But then something shifts. The more you analyze, the more potential problems you discover. The more problems you discover, the less ready you feel. And the less ready you feel, the more you analyze. Researchers who study decision-making sometimes call this analysis paralysis, a state where the desire to make the optimal choice leads to making no choice at all. In one study, people with higher verbal intelligence reported more worry and rumination. That doesn't mean intelligence causes overthinking, but a quick verbal mind can be very good at building convincing what-if stories. They can see angles others miss, anticipate criticism, and imagine consequences in vivid detail. That sounds useful. And sometimes it is. But there appears to be a tipping point where analysis shifts from helping you prepare to helping you avoid. Because as long as you're still thinking, you never have to confront the gap between the person you imagine becoming and the beginner you actually are right now. It's worth noting that deliberation itself isn't the problem. Careful thinking is valuable, especially for complex decisions with real consequences. The difficulty begins when thinking consistently replaces acting, and when the purpose of the analysis is no longer to improve the decision, but to postpone the discomfort of making one. So how can you tell the difference? And what can you do when thinking becomes a hiding place? Research suggests a few approaches. The first is identifying the emotion underneath the analysis. Neuroscientist Matthew Lieberman has found that simply naming an emotion, saying "I'm afraid this will be bad," rather than continuing to research what bad might look like, can reduce activation in the brain's threat detection regions. For the aspiring creator, this might mean pausing to ask not, "What else do I need to figure out?" but "What am I actually afraid will happen if I start?" The second is reducing the size of the action. The brain's resistance often scales with the perceived size of the task. Start a YouTube channel sounds enormous, but write one rough intro or record 60 seconds of voiceover is small enough that the overthinking mind struggles to build a case against it. Research on task initiation suggests that the hardest part of most tasks is simply beginning, and that smaller entry points can make starting significantly easier. The third is building what psychologist Albert Bandura called self-efficacy, the belief that you're capable of producing a desired outcome. Bandura's research found that self-efficacy doesn't typically develop through thinking or planning. It develops through what he called mastery experiences, moments where you act, observe the result, and discover you can handle it. For the overthinker, this means that clarity is more likely to come after the first video than before it. Not because thinking doesn't matter, but because experience provides a kind of information that analysis alone cannot. So picture that blank document again. You have your 5 video ideas, or maybe just 2 that survived. Your brain is suggesting one more round of research before you begin. Before you open the next tab, it might be worth asking a simpler question. Is this thinking helping me act, or helping me avoid? If it's helping you act, keep going. If it's helping you avoid, the next step might be smaller than you think. If this helped, consider liking and subscribing for more animated mental models without the motivational fluff.